Shall we start on the questions?
Yeah, sure.
All righty. Here's our first student.
Okay. So yeah, just quickly some just general questions like what have you been doing since the Cove was filmed, like just with dolphins and just other animals and that sort of thing?
Well, actually, I am doing exactly the same thing I was doing before the film The Cove came out. I was at the Cove trying to bring attention to what takes place there. The filmmakers, I'm not one of the filmmakers. The filmmakers have moved on to their next movie. I'm still at the Cove doing exactly what you saw me doing if you saw the Cove. I continue to go back there. I've been doing that for the last 11 years, 3 or 4 times a year. And I'm about to go back there in about a week.
Okay.
Actually, the 14th of May, yeah, 10 days.
Okay. So yeah, another question, like, what other things have you done that, like, just with dolphins that we didn't see in the movie The Cove? Like, is there anything else?
Well, yeah, that's hard to capsulize because I've been doing this work since Earth Day 1970, which is what, 40-something years, all over the planet. Anywhere there's a dolphin in trouble, I usually get a phone call or a fax or an email and I show up. For example, I just came from Switzerland, where the headquarters for the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums is, trying to get them to step up and take responsibility for all of the captures that are going on at the Cove. So I move around a lot, doing lots of different things on different dolphin issues, usually connected to the captivity issue.
Oh, okay. Sweet. Those are my questions. Whoever's next. All right.
So, have you helped in the release of any more captive dolphins since the filming of The Cove?
Yes, I have. Actually, I was contacted by the mayor of Seoul, Korea. Park Won-soon is his name. And I think I'm a huge fan. He's like a national hero, I believe, in Korea. He's a guy who confiscated several dolphins that were captured and transported illegally, and he wanted to free them. And so I gave them the protocol that I went to Korea and met with him and met with the scientists and gave them the protocol I had written for releasing captive dolphins, and they followed that to the T. And all but 2 of the dolphins have been released successfully back in the wild. And last week we got video confirmation of 2 of those dolphins we released a year ago. We're able to see the freeze brand on their dorsal fin, and we know it's the same dolphins we released, so we consider that release successful.
Thank you.
Sure. By the way, you could probably, if you Google in dolphin release Korea, you might be able to see the video of it.
Okay, so my question was, there any important information that was left out of the Cove, like in the film?
Gosh. You know, I've only seen the Cove one time at Sundance Film Festival, and I didn't see all of it, to be perfectly frank. It's very hard for me to watch that, so I don't know what all of the information is in there. Again, I'm not one of the filmmakers, and when I did that movie, I was just doing an interview, like I do all the time, not much different than this interview. And somehow it became a movie, and I've gone to maybe 100 screenings of that movie around the world, but I walk in the last 10 minutes just before the Q&A, so I'm not sure what was left in or left out of the Cove, but I just continue to do what I've been doing for the last 43 years.
All right. So my question is, how do you justify doing something illegal to stop something that is legal in Taiji?
Well, I don't justify it. In the case of Taiji, what we were doing there, the covert filming, it is not illegal. There's nothing illegal we did there. What the fishermen are doing and I really want to qualify this when I say fishermen. I'm talking about a very small minority of fishermen in Taiji. Most fishermen in Taiji do not kill dolphins. People in Japan don't kill dolphins. It's a very small minority, like 50 men in this one particular union. They have erected keep out signs and barricades and barbed wire and razor wire in a national park. This is a private company doing this. So what they're doing, in my opinion, is a violation of Article 21 of the Japanese Constitution. As a matter of fact, and this is really confidential, I hope you'll keep it to yourselves there, but when I return to Japan next time on the 14th of this month, I will be giving the Taiji Whale Museum, who's involved in the captures, a lawsuit. We're going to file a lawsuit against them for violating the Japanese Constitution. So nobody in the film that Cove broke the law making that movie. That was all done within the framework of the law.
Because that was the impression I got, is like, I didn't know it was a national park, so I just thought that breaking and entering is what it looked like on the film.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of things. For example, I did release a dolphin on Earth Day 1970 in Bimini, and I turned myself in. That's called civil disobedience. Now, had I just left in the middle of the night, that would have been vandalism. So we have to remember, America was founded by the civil disobedient. If there were no activists in America, we would all be speaking with a British accent today. So what I was doing was called civil disobedience. Sometimes civil disobedience is the best way to bring attention to a bad law. That's exactly what Rosa Parks did. You know who Rosa Parks is?
Yeah.
When she refused to give her seat on the bus to that white guy, she was committing a crime. She actually broke the law, and she didn't run away. She fessed up to it, and that's called civil disobedience. So sometimes that's the only way you have to bring attention to a bad law. And so when I release dolphins, it's done in that context. Release them illegally. It's in the context of civil disobedience.
All right, thanks.
And I'm prepared to pay the price. It's not like I'm doing this and running away.
All right.
As we transition here, folks, keep in mind that if you have follow-up questions, we're going to kind of break it into chunks. So we're down through about number 5. If you had anything that came to mind that you would like to follow up on anything 1 through 5 that Mr. O'Barry has said, if you would like to jump in here real quick before we jump on to question 6. Do we have anybody where that came up? Okay, just jot down your thoughts as we go along so that you can make sure that we'll stop.
All right, so my question is there science behind the theory that dolphins can be depressed?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, and so I can't, my experience with dolphins, actually living with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for example, on the Flipper show, or when I'm releasing them in the wild, I move in with them, and you can read their body language. It's pretty easy to tell when a dolphin is going through what I call captive dolphin depression syndrome. And you can see this at any dolphinarium, anywhere in the world. It goes on in between the shows. When a show is going on, there's a lot of excitement, they're being fed, the music is playing, and so you're dealing with an optical illusion. The dolphins are very excited and they're jumping. But if you go there and watch the same dolphin in between shows, you will see what we commonly describe as depression, where a dolphin's head is up against the edge of the tank and just laying there on the surface of the water in a depressed, sometimes catatonic state. This is one of the reasons the dorsal fin, especially on the orcas, collapses like this, because when they're in captivity, going through this, what I call depression, they're spending 80% of the time on the surface of the water, which is unnatural, and 20% under the water. In the wild, dolphins and other whales will spend 80% of the time underwater and 20% on the surface. So it's gravity that's doing that, pulling the dorsal fin down. And I think dolphins do get depressed. I know that for sure. I can't prove that scientifically because I'd have to actually be able to read their mind. And I can't read their mind for all of the same reasons I can't read your mind right now. I can't tell what you're thinking right now. But if you became very depressed in front of me, I would be able to see that and acknowledge that. So it's really common sense when I say depression. It's not a scientific fact.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, is there any regulations as to how many dolphins can be killed in Taiji or around the world?
Well, in Taiji, there is a quota set by the Japanese Fisheries Agency. And when we first started going there, in 2003, the quota was 2,100 a year. That's how many they killed in the cove. Throughout Japan, the quota is 23,000. And most of those are porpoises, which are killed up in the north in Iwate Prefecture. And they're killed offshore with handheld harpoons. So it's hard to see, it's hard to document. But the numbers have dropped dramatically at the cove. For example, last killing season, which goes on from September 1st through March, the numbers were down to 700. So 700 from 2,100 is a dramatic decrease. And the reason it's decreasing is because Japanese people are learning that the product, it's about supply and demand. It's about a product and supply and demand. The product is poison. The dolphin meat is contaminated with mercury, menthol mercury, and PCBs. And so they're not buying the product. But unfortunately, there's a rise in the capture of dolphins. The captures are the economic underpinning of the slaughter. So we're trying to get the captivity industry to step up and take responsibility and take ownership of this issue and stop these captures in Taiji.
So you mentioned mercury in the meat. Is there any scientific proof backing that up?
Yeah. Actually, I have it right here in front of me. I've got, well, I can show you. Yeah, good. Glad you asked. Just a second. Here is, let me see now. I don't know if you can see it. No, that's, I guess I have to hold it this way. Yeah. Can you see that? There's a picture of a package of meat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had that tested. This one here is a striped dolphin. It's 13.5 times above the safety limit. And that's pretty low, actually. Most of the ones are way above the limit. Here's some more dolphin meat. More dolphin meat. So every package we've tested since 2003 is contaminated not only with mercury, menthol mercury, and PCBs. That's because the dolphin is the highest on the food chain. And you know, what's really shocking is every body of water in America is contaminated with mercury. Right here, the Everglades where I grew up is contaminated with mercury. Every body of water in America, every lake, every river, every stream, that is absolutely shocking. So it's not just the dolphins in the cove, it's the dolphins right off the coast of Florida here. It's the dolphins off the coast of Oregon, anywhere, everywhere. The oceans are becoming toxic. And that's because every time we turn the lights on, we're getting this power, this electricity from someplace. It's not magic, it comes from someplace. And it's been coming from coal-fired plants. The coal-fired plants send up this pollution, and gravity brings it back down into the oceans, and it enters into the food chain. Look, you can do this yourself. You can go to any sushi restaurant in Oregon, there must be one in your hometown, and just buy the tuna yourself and have it tested as a school class project, and you'll see it's contaminated with mercury. So the frightening thing is all of this mercury is coming from these coal-fired plants, and there's a new coal-fired plant going online in China every week. So it's not like, well, the problem is over there, you know, your end of the boat is sinking. It doesn't work like that. We all live downstream and we're all impacted by these coal-fired plants. So obviously the solution is to use wind generators and battery-powered automobiles and things like that. And that's starting to happen, so I'm somewhat encouraged by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of the dolphin meat, all of it is contaminated with mercury.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back again.
Okay.
So, do you believe that other countries should be getting involved, and to what extent, and do you work with other countries?
Other countries getting involved in what?
In like the prevention of the killings and stuff like that.
In Japan? Oh yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, we have a demonstration every year on September 1st. That's the day that the dolphin killing season begins. Last year, I think we had 153 countries join us, and I hope you guys will too. Go to the nearest, you can do this on the internet, find out where the Japanese embassy is, or the Japanese consulate office, and hold a demonstration at noontime on September 1st there. And that's very helpful. By the way, I want to make it really clear that I like Japan a lot. I've got a lot of friends in Japan, and that's one of the reasons we're opposed to the boycott as a solution to solve this problem. A boycott of Japan is a blanket indictment against all Japanese people, and it's unfair. It's actually a form of racism. And so we don't support the boycott of Japan as a method to solve this problem. There's specifically a small group of men in Taiji who do this. Most Japanese people do not get involved in killing dolphins. There's 3,500 people who live in Taiji. Again, it's a very small minority of those people in Taiji who are doing this, not the entire town.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mark? You guys anticipate when your turn's coming up, so we don't spend so much time on the walkie.
Alright.
Hi.
Hello.
So, my question is, do you think that the fishermen are truly trying to hide it, or are they just doing this in accordance with Japanese law?
Oh, there's no question they're trying to hide it. You can see that. They used to be, when I first started going there, they weren't hiding it at all. They were killing them openly like this. And then they blocked the cove off so you couldn't get back there with cameras. And then after the movie came out, they put a tarp over the top. Now that tarp is like actually a box where the side curtains, that the dolphins are driven into this hidden space where they kill them. And obviously it's to make sure that nobody sees what they're doing. So yeah, their circle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually I think it will go away.
Alright. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So how long do dolphins live in captivity compared to how long they live in the wild?
Well, there's a lot of speculation about that. If you talk to people at SeaWorld, they will tell you they live longer in captivity than in the wild. People who are opposed to captivity say the reverse. I don't really go down that road because it has nothing to do with the quantity of life. It's about the quality of life. You can keep something alive for a very long time. For example, the room you are in right now, if you never left that room again the rest of your life, and we brought food into you, eventually you would want to go for a walk, probably. You'd want to leave that room. So it's really about the quality of life, not the quantity of life. It's not about science, it's about ethics. So the numbers don't really mean anything at all. Dolphins in captivity aren't really living. They are surviving. Living is doing things. Living is swimming in a straight line for 40 miles if you feel like it, or surfing, or cooperatively feeding, all of these things. That's what life is about. That's what living is. Living is doing things. In captivity, they can't do any of these things. They're involved in sensory deprivation in these tanks. At zoos, for example, if you go to any zoo that has dolphins, you'll notice the dolphin is the only animal in the zoo that actually has to work in order to be fed, has to do a show. And if you, while you're at the zoo, take a look at the snake exhibit. Cold-blooded reptiles like snakes and lizards are treated better, treated with more respect than captive dolphins. If you look at the snake exhibit, you'll see that the snake has some things that are somewhat natural, like grass, for example, or rocks that the snake can get in and hide, or a tree limb to climb on. But if you go to SeaWorld and put a face mask on and look underwater, you'll see that the habitat of the captive dolphin, well, there's nothing there. It's just a concrete box. You wouldn't do that to a cold-blooded snake, but we do it to dolphins all the time. And they live in a world of sound. Their primary sense is sound, unlike the rest of the animals in the zoo, which are light-oriented. We are light-oriented. We're visually oriented. That's our primary sense. So it is true with the dolphin. The sound is their primary sense. So when you put them in a concrete box and deprive them of being free-ranging creatures and the inability to use their sonar, it's stressful. And that's why the mortality rate is so high, because of this stress.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi there.
Hello.
So my question for you is, do you think America, the American people, is opposing its views/values on the Japanese government?
Do I? I think some people do. I don't do that. I don't think it's right to go to any country and lay a trip on people and tell them what they should eat and what they should not eat. But you know, the dolphins that we're talking about, they don't carry a Japanese passport. They don't actually own these dolphins. The dolphins are simply migrating past, trying to migrate past Taiji. And a small group of fishermen go out there and drive them in. So I've heard that question before, and some people ask, you know, how dare you come over here and interfere? It's kind of like saying, if you're in Tokyo and you happen to see a woman getting raped, just walk by and don't do anything about it. I'm not willing to do that. I think when this level of cruelty is absolute, we should all oppose it absolutely. And that's what we're doing. And we do that within the framework of the law. So if a lot of Japanese fishermen came over to America and protested a slaughterhouse, for example, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would cheer them on.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So, if dolphins are not endangered, why are we trying to save them? And then also, you mentioned you brought up the woman that you wouldn't pass her if she was being raped. So, and then I'm noticing you're comparing dolphins a lot to humans. And is that just you, or is that something? I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure I'm comparing them with. You know, I was using the analogy of, you know, some few people in Taiji, the fishermen primarily, are telling us to mind our own business and not interfere with what they're doing. So that's just an analogy that I use. When this kind of injustice is absolute, you're supposed to oppose it absolutely, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. And so if dolphins are not endangered, why are we trying to save them?
Well, there are many endangered, actually. There are many species, so it's not just the Atlantic bottlenose dolphin, which are not endangered, that are being killed in the cove. There are small whales being slaughtered there. I think the bowhead whale, there are several there that are in trouble. But look, do we have to wait until they're on the endangered list in order to stop this cruelty and this injustice? Is that what we do, is wait until they're... look, I was in the Yangtze River in China about 25 years ago trying to save the rarest dolphin in the world, the Yangtze River dolphin. Today, there are none. They're gone. They're never coming back. They're extinct. Actually, we're losing 30,000 species a year right now in the 6th extinction. There were 5 before this. They were natural. The new one is man-made. And that's the theme of the new movie from the people who made the Cove movie. They have a new movie that just aired a few days ago at Tribeca called 6. And yeah, it deals with this issue of extinction. So you don't have to wait until animals become extinct or close to it to step up and do something about it. I'm not waiting for that.
Makes sense. Okay, so another one. The fishermen are referred to as hunters. So what do you think of hunting in general?
I'm not a hunter, so I don't really think about hunting. It's not on my radar.
It's just the comparison, dolphins being murdered, slaughtered like that, and then, you know, maybe is it not as bad for like deer in America because we're just shooting them one by one, or like?
Well, I don't get involved in that issue. I'm not a hunter. I work with dolphins. I see them being slaughtered in front of me. I do something about it. But look, I do not sit at the right-hand side of God and have the solution to all of these social problems. Hunting and people eating meat, or look, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying. I just came across this code. I saw what happens, and I'm doing everything in my power to stop that. That doesn't mean I have the solution to all of the other problems in the world.
All right. Okay, so my last question.
No, I'm not sitting in judgment of deer hunters.
Okay. So my last question is, do you think they're truly trying to hide it, or are they just doing this in accordance to Japanese law? Oh, forget it.
Yeah. No, there's no question that they're hiding it. That anybody can see that. There's no question about that.
Okay.
Sure.
Caught up in the moment, guys.
Okay, I was just wondering, are you opposed to both the killing and capture, or are you mainly opposed to just their capture and use for entertainment?
I'm opposed to abusing them in any way that they're being abused. Killing them, capturing them. In some ways, the ones that die at the Cove are the lucky ones. The ones that get captured and end up in some of the horror shows that, you know, Japan is the size of California. It has 127 million people and 51 dolphinariums. Can you imagine 51 dolphinariums? Some of them the tank is no bigger than this office I'm sitting in. And the dolphins who end up there live a very miserable life until they die. And then they simply dump the bodies and then they get more. So in some ways they suffer more than those that are being slaughtered, those that are captured. And we're trying to get that industry to step up and start policing their own industry. I mean, why don't they go there? They being the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, SeaWorld, Marineland, all these places. Why aren't they doing what I'm doing? Just show up and do whatever you can to stop this injustice. But they don't do it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi again.
Hello.
So, in the Cove, you said you've been arrested like numerous of times, but exactly how many times have you been arrested, and how how do you even get released?
How do I get what?
How do you get released from prison? Because you've been arrested so many times, like.
Yeah, well, I haven't been arrested in quite a while, actually.
Oh, really?
When I'm getting, I don't like getting arrested, I tell you, that it goes against every fiber in my body to bring attention to myself, and that's what you're doing, basically. But I gotta tell you, when I was getting arrested, it was always for protesting the capture of dolphins. They were capturing them in Florida, a place called Pine Island, Florida, or in Mississippi Sound. Most of the dolphins in Europe came from one of those two places. Most Americans didn't know anything about this. Dolphins being captured, put on airplanes, and shipped all over the world, to Japan and Germany and Holland and almost everywhere. That's what we were trying to stop. So some of the things in the movie are taken out of context. The editors of the film found pieces of me doing interviews and saying, well, somebody asked me a question, how many times you've been arrested? And, you know, that was when all of these captures were taking place. And I was getting arrested almost every month for whenever they were capturing dolphins, I would show up in Florida and disrupt the captures and deliberately get arrested to bring attention to the issue.
Oh, okay.
And I must tell you, they haven't captured dolphins in the United States in over 20 years, and the only reason they're not capturing them is because I went there and got arrested and brought attention to what they're doing.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have to get arrested anymore, as long as they stop capturing dolphins in America.
All right. All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
And there are other Americans who have been arrested for exactly the same charge, which is civil disobedience. People like Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy and Father Daniel Berrigan and many other people. So as long as, anytime I've been arrested, it's been by my design in order to bring attention to a problem.
Okay, so I think the biggest difference between people who share the same views as you and people who don't is their opinion on the intelligence of dolphins. Would you consider the dolphin more aware, more intelligent than your normal animal like a cow or a deer or a chicken?
Intelligence, you know, I struggled with that. I struggled with that for many, many years, especially when I was actually training dolphins. Because I was reading books by Dr. John Lilly, who was a neurosurgeon and was sort of the father of dolphin research. And he's the one who discovered that dolphins are not automatic air breathers, because when he gave them an anesthetic, they would die, they would stop breathing. Dolphins are not automatic air breathers like we are. Every breath is a conscious effort. And so John Lilly got a grant from NASA to try and communicate with some non-human intelligence, because NASA thought at some point we're going to run into some non-human intelligence and we need a code, some way to communicate. And so he did this work for many, many years, and he was not successful in communication. But his opinion was that dolphins are more intelligent than we are, because they have a larger brain. They've been here 65 million years, and all of their senses are better. And so he concluded they're more intelligent. So I struggled with the same question you're asking me, and I have come to the conclusion that dolphins are not smarter and they're not less smart. They're simply different. For example, I can't do any of the things a butterfly does. I mean, a butterfly would think we're pretty unintelligent. So, yeah, so that's the answer. They're not smarter or less smart. They're just different.
So,
intelligence, by the way, I've come to believe that intelligence is a man-made concept. It's something that we made up to separate ourselves from the rest of humanity, the rest of the species on this planet.
okay, so in accordance to that, should we value dolphin life equal or the same as human life?
I think so, yeah. Why not? I think every living thing, everything alive, whether it's a blade of grass or a whale, everything that's keeping them alive, every living thing, everything living is a partial manifestation of what we call God. That's what God is. It's not a guy on a cloud with a long beard. It's all of these things that are alive in different consciousness. So it's a complicated, long story we don't have time for during this Q&A, but the answer is dolphins are not more intelligent or less intelligent than us. They're simply different.
So would you consider it a religion then? Is that what you...
No. No, I'm not religious at all. I don't follow any organized religion.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Do you guys have other questions? Okay, I'm going to give you guys a chance to think of some follow-up. I've got a few more on the list and a couple I've been thinking about, so I'm going to take my turn. Morning, Mr. O'Barry. I'm Miss Rowland.
Hello.
This is my class, and we're studying global issues, and this issue came to our attention as one that is somewhere outside of the United States. So it's definitely gotten a lot of discussion and thought going in our class, and that's what we're trying to do here. So I have a couple questions, and I think I'll start. This is part of the list that students generated. We have 2 classes, and they both help contribute to this, and so I want to make sure that we honor that by not skipping their questions. And so when we're talking about, you talked about the boycott, that you didn't favor boycotting in Japan because it would affect all those other people. What other methods, besides the ones that you're employing, do you think are effective in issues like this around the world or with the dolphins? And are there groups that are trying to do things with the dolphins that you oppose?
Do things with the dolphins I oppose?
Well, like your methods are, you know, like we just depicted in the code, but are there other groups that are doing things that are different than you to try to stop this slaughter or the capture of dolphins?
Well, there are a lot of people around the world because of the Cove. The Cove movie created legions of activists. It's sort of a new kind of filmmaking, as well as the movie Blackfish. And I hope your class will see that as well and discuss that. It's a very powerful movie as well. Yeah, so there are a lot of people, it created a lot of activists, and they are working on their computers in cyberspace, getting messages of protest to the Japanese embassies, connecting up with Japanese people, and a lot of, I mean, literally hundreds of people working on this issue. So I don't know exactly what all of them are doing, and I'm not going to criticize any of them, but there are many people doing lots of different things. And you have to remember, it's a very, very difficult issue to work on because what these few fishermen are doing is perfectly legal. I mean, I might not like what SeaWorld does, but it's free enterprise and it's legal. So you have to walk a fine line, you know. And really my work is about educating the consumers. I believe the consumer has all the power, not the government. Governments protect corporations. They do not protect people and other animals. It's really up to us, the consumers, to educate ourselves and then act responsibly. And that goes for lumber or dolphins or whatever. It's always about supply and demand. And so if people see the movie The Cove or Blackfish, there's a very good chance they're not going to buy a ticket for a dolphin show. That's why, as a matter of fact, that is exactly why the killing of the dolphins in the Cove has dropped to 700 instead of 2,300, is because the consumers stopped buying the product. As soon as people stop buying tickets for dolphin shows, that will go away as well. So it's really about supply and demand, and that's really what I'm trying to do, is educate the consumers.
Okay. Have you heard about what happened with Keiko out here in Oregon? Keiko the whale? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I just wondered if you had any involvement in that.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Have you ever tried to rehabilitate and release dolphins from captivity and put them back out in the wild?
Yes, I've done this in Brazil, Haiti, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Colombia, Brazil, and lately in Korea. Look under blog, you'll see photographs of the two of the dolphins we released in Korea more than a year ago. And we know it's the same dolphin because we put a what we call a freeze brand on their dorsal fin. Their dorsal fin has a white mark, and you can identify them long after the release with a photograph. But we know it was successful. Same is true in Brazil. We have sightings a year and a day after the release and 22 months after the release. So we know it was successful. But we don't always have the opportunity to do that in Guatemala, Nicaragua. I'm literally living in the jungle, and there is nothing there. I have to carry the dolphin, I have to make a stretcher. I have to find food for the dolphin, you know. They're in a sea pen and they can't catch their own food, so I have to go do that. And you don't always have the money to do a science project. So it's more about a do or die kind of scenario, a rescue to release them from the mountains in Guatemala and somehow try and find a helicopter to get them to the coast. And it's just impossible to do a science project with no budget. And but some of it, whenever we can, like in Korea, it was pretty much a science project. Whenever you can do it, it's the best way to do it if you have the money.
Okay. Another question kind of comes up, you just brought it up. How much money has been spent by your organization to work on this project?
Which project?
To stop the slaughter in Taiji?
Oh, I don't know. We've been on this issue for the last 11 years. So I don't handle the money. I don't even know how that works. So I couldn't answer your question about money.
Do you have any idea how many supporters you have worldwide?
No, I don't. I don't even go in the office. I'm a guy I'm here now in Miami. I was in Denmark a few days ago, and that's 2 hours from the Faroe Islands, another place we're working to stop the pilot whale slaughter. I'm constantly out there in the field. I'm not in the office. I have no contact with the accountants or, you know, the administrators. They sort of leave me alone to go do what I do.
Okay. Students, do you have other follow-up questions? I've got some more students that I'm going to give them more turns. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. All right, I'm back again.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you think, like, there are dolphins that you've released, but what do you think happens to those dolphins after they get released? Like, because they've been in some of them probably have been in captivity for a long time. And I'm thinking, do they even, like, remember how to, like, survive anymore? They don't have, and when you release them, they probably don't have, like, a pod anymore that they're with. And that sort of thing.
Well,
I'm just wondering, yeah.
They're all different. I got to tell you, they're all very different, and they have a different history. For example, the dolphin in Brazil, his name was Flipper. It was in captivity for about 14 years. That's a long time. And this was in Santos, Brazil. This was the last captive dolphin in Brazil. And it was documented by the National Geographic Society. And so when I found the dolphin, I left my assistants to feed him. And I went to Laguna, about 300 miles away, and found the guy who actually captured Flipper. His name was Tito. And Tito took me to the exact location where Flipper was captured, and he told me that he took Flipper away from his mother, whose name was Riscadero. And the reason they know the names of these dolphins in this particular part of Laguna, Brazil, and you can Google that in also, it's a very unusual place, because the dolphins come in during a certain time of the day, a certain tide, and the fishermen are all lined up along the bank of the river with their casting nets, and the dolphins drive the fish, the tahinia or mullet, they drive them right to the fishermen. The fishermen throw their nets and are able to catch many of the fish, but many of them bounce back off of the net to the dolphins. So the fishermen will tell you they have a symbiotic relationship with the dolphins, but from what I've observed, it's more of a utilitarian relationship. the dolphins are utilizing the fishermen's fishing nets and and vice versa. So when we released Flipper after 3 or 4 months of rehabilitation, Flipper's mother, Riscadero, would come to the sea pen every day. And we know that because Tito was there and they identified them by their dorsal fins. And so when we released Flipper, he was released back to the same pod he was captured from. And he took off with his mother. Now, that's kind of unusual. Again, they're all very different. Somebody brought up Keiko a little earlier. Keiko was released, was not able to connect up with his original pod. The ones in Guatemala were able to, and in Nicaragua. And so they're all very different. They all have a different history. Some of them should not be released. There's one, an albino in Taiji, Japan, who I don't think is a candidate to be released. But we can take the dolphin out of a tank and put them in a natural sea pen where they can enjoy the natural rhythms of the sea and the tide and the current and stop doing stupid dolphin tricks with them and sort of retire them. So all dolphins in captivity are not candidates to be released, but those that are should be. Those that cannot be released should be transferred to a natural sea pen and given birth control. There's no reason in the world for a dolphin to be born in captivity. So that's capsulizing a lot of stuff, but I think on our website we have the protocol for releasing captive dolphins in the wild, and that will address your question.
Okay, and also I'm just wondering, like, with the amount of media coverage that's with this issue, I'm just wondering if it's like, I feel like it might be like detracting from other world issues, like human issues that we can try to solve, and people are instead trying to focus on these dolphin issues. I'm just wondering, how much do you want people to like take this seriously? Like, do you want them to like totally live it, or do you want people to just know that it's there and just like know that it's there and do like passive things to try to get rid of it instead of like, I don't know, because I'm trying to think about like human issues and how there are so many of those right now.
Yeah, especially in Japan. In Japan, look, I go to Fukushima. I go there knowing I'm going to be radiated.
Yeah. Oh, audio cut out.
Sorry?
Audio cut out for a second. Okay, can you say that again?
Okay. Yeah. But I know exactly what you're talking about. In Japan, the big issue is Fukushima, the nuclear plant, and thousands of people who have been impacted by that. One day I was at the Cove, and I was reading the Japan Times, and I was reading about a group of Japanese citizens, senior citizens, who wanted to go to Fukushima to help with disaster relief. And they found out that if they go there, they're going to get radiated, and they're probably going to get cancer. But that's not going to happen for 30 years. And I thought, wow, I can do that too. I'm 74 years old. So I've been going there. And I'll go back again, and we bring bottles of water, 5 gallons of water, and we bring different kind of food and things to the folks there. So yeah, there are many other problems, and I'm not suggesting everybody abandon those people in Fukushima and concentrate on the Cove. I'm just doing everything I can do to stop it, and no, it shouldn't detract from other things. There are other problems in the world. But you know, what goes on in the Cove is a microcosm of what the bigger issues, you know, toxic waste in the ocean. The oceans are dying. They really are dying. Fish are disappearing. And the Cove is a microcosm of all of that. I mean, the movie shows that. The Cove is about the size of a football field. If we can't fix that, if we can't fix that problem, that takes place in a body of water the size of a football field, how do you solve the bigger problems the ocean has? So I'm not willing to abandon the cove until that problem is fixed.
Yeah. Yep. There we go.
Anybody else? Zach, go ahead. We got time for one more question.
Okay.
All right, so I'm back again. I don't know if this is going to be silly or not, but I have a friend who's not here today, and I feel like this is something she would ask. So I'm going to go for it. So what, in your opinion, would be the difference between the slaughter of the dolphins for food in Japan and the slaughter of cows and chickens for food in the United States?
Well, they're both very bad. And there are people working on the slaughterhouse issue. But yeah, they're both bad scenarios.
Okay, so what in your...
I think the slaughter, I've been to a slaughterhouse, I know what goes on there, and it's pretty bad. I think what happens in the cove is much more cruel, because the dolphins are abused from the moment the boats contact them far out at sea, and they put their poles in the water, start banging on these poles and driving the dolphins in. Sometimes that will take all day long, and they're terrorized. They're running as fast as they can run, pregnant mothers aborting their babies, the old being left behind, the entire pod being disrupted, and then they drive them into the cove, and sometimes they don't kill them for a week. They don't feed them during that week. Babies that are still there can't nurse. So what I see in the cove is far more cruel. And by the way, when you're watching the movie The Cove, as horrific as that looks, you're really seeing the Disney version of what happens there. I mean, it's a lot worse than you can imagine. It's very, very hard to watch. So, yeah, what happens in slaughterhouses and what happens in the cove, they're both bad.
I thought you didn't see the cove. You said that you only saw like the last 10 minutes, and that
You
the
know,
cove is...
well, no, I saw, when I go to a film festival, I will come in the last 10 minutes, just before the Q&A. I did see it at the Sundance Film Festival, most of it. Some of this graphic footage I couldn't watch. But I know what it's about. I shot a lot of the footage myself, and I'm there 4 or 5 times a year, so I know in detail what goes on and how horrific it is. And I can tell you that the worst part is not in the movie, because it's just so over the top, people wouldn't be able to see it.
And you mentioned week-long without being fed, the dolphins in the cove. How did you figure that out?
Well, because I'm there. I'm there the moment they're driven in, and I'm there for weeks on end, sometimes months.
Yeah, but I thought you couldn't see it from the entrance, so how do you know? Do you go inside?
No, I have gorilla nests up in those mountains. I live in the mountains. I see everything. There's nothing I don't see.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Sure.
I'm back, Mr. O'Barry.
Hello.
Thank you so much for visiting with our class. We really appreciate it. I think that you've answered some really great questions. And thank you for giving your time. And most importantly, thank you for what you're doing. I really
appreciate it.
Thank you.